So we all know that the NHL loves parody. Everything everything about the league, the way it's structured, is to embrace parity. Look at the cap. Good teams are forced to let go of talented players early before they want to because they can't afford them no longer. Look at the playoffs. Rules are put aside. There's a different rule book in the playoffs, which evens the playing field between good teams and bad teams. But now we have the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup final for the second year in a row. And they're by the looks of it, they are the best team. Even if they lose this series, which could totally happen, I think we could all agree they are the best team. If they win 2 years in a row, they could be on their way to being a dynasty. You never know. Now, in a league driven by parity that loves parity, having a dynasty team, kind of like what the Blackhawks had earlier in the decade, is that a good thing for the league? Or do you think that the league likes that sort of thing? Or do you think the league would prefer maybe Montreal wins this to show that, hey, just squeak in and you got a shot to win it?
That's a great question. I think it's so kind of was mulling this over today. I'm just thinking, like, where's the storylines here if Tampa wins? Or if Tampa loses, well, we all know having the history of the sport, Montreal, great story and all that. But if Tampa wins, where do you kind of go from here? And what I mean by that is Tampa a team where, you're sitting here next year saying, okay, you have back-to-back champions, hasn't been done since the Penguins did it not too long ago. But is this really a team that you can put in the same conversation as and I know they're not the same, but just from a storyline standpoint, the Patriots of the NFL or the Yankees of the MLB? And what I mean by that is who's going to dethrone, the hated dynasty team. And when I look back on it, I'm like, I think that's what NHL needs. NHL needs more storylines, more villains, more something. It's just too vanilla. And I'm looking at Tampa. I'm saying Tampa could win the next 3 or 4 Stanley Cup in a row. They're not a hateable team. There's nothing about them. I'm looking at them saying, oh, man, I hate Stamkos, or man, I hate Hedman. Fact is, there's nothing to hate about them.
You would just hate them winning over and over again, and that would give you a little bit of hate to then cheer against them.
Correct. So what I'm saying is, though, like, if Tampa is this next dynasty, is that good for the league? And I think that's just something where, I think, I'm on the side with Rob, and I know Rob will get into it because he likes the discussion about parity, but I think there's an element to this sport where you need a clear-cut, team above and beyond, like they used to have, like, of the Detroit of the 90s or the Avalanche of the 90s, and everybody chasing. There's just too much randomness. There's too much, as Rob mentioned before, flip a coin. I think the NHL needs this. I think the NHL needs a team that's saying, hey, we're taking the cap. It's almost like those movies where you have the villain. We have the cap. So what? We're 20 million over the cap. Here's to you. You know what I mean? Like, I think the NHL needs it. I think it's just a storyline that's just not there right now. And I'm hoping they do well because you know what? Even from the Leafs standpoint, just to look from a Toronto thing, they're in their division next year. That is the measuring stick. You want that team. If Toronto wants to go to the playoffs again next year, you got to go through Tampa. Just like in the Super Bowl, you got to go through New England. All roads go through New England. All roads should go through Tampa. So I'm hoping this becomes a dynasty team just from a watchability standpoint, moving forward. What do you guys think?
Part of this is on the NHL too, though, to embrace it. Like, I feel like the NHL wants to squash this. The NHL wants this parity. They want the randomness. They love that Montreal's in, I think. I
love it.
I don't understand why. I'm looking at other leagues. Like, TSN actually made fun of the NHL by having Maggie the Monkey pick winners. Because they were saying we could literally have a monkey pick because it's so random. Because in the regular season, it almost means nothing because the playoffs are a completely different game. It's like, just get in. Become the 8th seed, and if you have a good playoff team, which Montreal has, you become a dangerous side. I'm looking at the 2 most popular sports in America. The NBA, in the last 14 years, has had 10 teams go to the finals. Think about this. 14 years, 28 different finals teams. They've had 10. The NHL in 13 years, one less, has 18. They've got 8 more teams. It's more random. And everybody says they love parody. The only problem is you don't. You think you do, but we actually hate parody. We don't watch parody. The NFL in 13 years has sent 6 teams from the AFC. It was almost a rite of passage that Tom Brady was going to the Super Bowl. And we all watch because we love to hate watch. We just don't like when the dynasty is not ours. You can't tell me as a Leaf fan, you wouldn't be like, hey, if the Leafs were a dynasty, you wouldn't love it. You would go crazy. You would be great. And the Montreal fans would hate it. Just vice versa.
Let's not talk about dynasty and Leafs in the same sentence.
Sorry.
All right.
We just gotta you gotta win a playoff round first before you can even.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that we watch dynasties. Cleveland, Golden State. I heard that. Oh my God, we got the same finals 4 years in a row. It did 4 of the best ratings every year because it had 2 of the best players in the final. It had all the elements. You had 2 of the best. You had the 2 best teams. You had 2 of the all-time great players. You had everything the finals want. If this finals was New York, Montreal, the marquee players were Carey Price, a goaltender, and Matt Barzal, that nobody in New York even knows who he is. So, and 2 ugly styles. And is that what you want? Don't you want your top teams playing for your championships? Everybody bangs on the NBA and like their style, but you get the best teams in. And it might not be the best teams every year. Like Miami went to the NBA Finals last year. They were the 5th seeded team. Everybody's like, wow, a 5th seed went to the finals. They were shocked. And it was only because they were in the bubble. That's the only reason Miami went, because they wouldn't have gone. And the East was a down year. But the fact that a 5 seed went and they're like, this is crazy. And the NHL has an 8 seed and like, yeah, this is great. This is fantastic. It's not good for the game. We don't like parity as much as you like to say you do.
And even if Tampa wins this year, like I mentioned before, the cap is going to come in. They're not going to be able to twist it and manipulate it like they did this year. They're going to have to lose some guys. So it's going to be even tougher for them to continue it and win another one potentially in the next year or two to fulfill that dynasty label. But first, they got to win this one against Montreal, and then we can begin having those discussions. But it is interesting to think about, would the NHL actually like that sort of thing, or is that a big no go for them? They want let's keep it random. Any team can win, and I think I know which way I feel they stand on that thinking, and it's they love the parody. But I think this is the dumbest run league out of all 4 sports leagues, the major 4 sports leagues in North America. This is by far the dumbest run league. For me, it's time for a shakeup at the top. Get someone in there with a fresh vision. You saw the NBA. David Stern was an awesome commissioner, but when he retired and Adam Silver took over, it was refreshing. He had some new ideas, and I feel like they've only gotten better since then. The NHL is just stuck. And I don't know if that's Bettman, Daly, or much more of the leadership group of the league, but anyways, we can discuss this another day. But
do you guys like before we go, do you guys like, I don't like playing in a league where next year the Phoenix Coyotes or the Arizona Coyotes or the Houston, whatever Coyotes they are in nowadays, that they can maybe get to the finals. They just need to get in, and then all of a sudden we're watching the Phoenix Coyotes in the final. Is that a good thing for the league?
No, it's terrible. It's stupid to think that that's a good thing for the league.
So would it not be a good idea to maybe say, I like the floor, but maybe we say, instead of a salary cap, a hard cap, let's go to a luxury tax. Let's
That's the smart way to do it, but that's common sense.
And then once you spend over the luxury tax ceiling, then that money, your tax, goes to the lower market teams.
Does the NBA not do it? Does the MLB not do it?
Yep.
Right? That's 2 pretty successful leagues. You know, Rob, I asked the same question to you. You're about to see a Phoenix Milwaukee NBA final. Is that good for the league?
Not those 2 teams, no. Well, Phoenix maybe. Phoenix is a really good team, but Milwaukee, no. And even the NBA is in a bad spot this year with Milwaukee and Atlanta. They wanted Philly in there for sure.
Yeah.
But even Philly was like, the East has had a few down years, but they're still not sending a bunch of random teams. They're sending like their superstars are going every year. Devin Booker and Chris Paul are 2 of the best players. The NHL has to look at that and say, I think there was a stat, the 30 top scorers in the league were out before last round. Was that?
Yep.
That's incredible. And that at some point, and Gary Bettman, awful. He's an awful. I don't care what everybody says. They're the 4th place league still. How
And
they
it's
still
not
haven't
even
got-
close.
Not
They're
even
not
clo- how
even
they-
close to 3rd place.
And it's like, yeah.
I'd argue they're closer to 5th than they are to 3rd because MLS is coming.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree as well.
MLS is coming for baseball also. It's
Yeah.
going to be number 3 very soon.
They're knocking
that-
there.
Ain't that right, Bobby?
I can't wait to get into that with my baseball boys.
Bang a little
carrot.
carrot.
Hey, they're knocking. If they figure it out, goodbye NHL, goodbye MLB.